Suddenly, the ground began to shake. The men were clearly panicked. At that moment, the carriage in front of them was tossed into the air, and a monster emerged from the ground. The three men were sent tumbling and crawling by the monster's attacks. The monster chased after them frantically. The short-tempered half-orc angrily got up, and the monster curiously stopped its actions. Then, it flung him away with one swing and continued chasing the other two. They managed to squeeze into a cave, but there was a 10,000-meter cliff on the other side. Seeing that the monster wasn't giving up, they had no choice but to jump off the cliff to escape. 10 minutes later, the two men crashed right next to a fisherman. Seeing them climb onto a wooden raft, the monster on the mountaintop became furious. The men below mocked the monster, saying it definitely wouldn't dare to jump into the water. But as soon as they finished speaking, the monster also jumped into the water. The huge waves it created capsized their boat and the people on it. Beck had just surfaced when the monster grabbed him, and they dove into the water. The monster was quite good at swimming. Beck struggled for a while before pulling out a dagger and fiercely stabbing the monster's tiger's mouth. The monster's tongue emerged from the water, and Beck stood on its back, raising his sword to stab. But Grin, who had climbed ashore, pointed ahead and shouted. Along the way, the monster crashed into a rock and was knocked unconscious, drifting away with the current, not knowing if it was dead or alive. However, Beck had managed to save his own life. But as soon as he squatted down to rest, he found a sword pointed at his head. It turned out to be the White Queen. She didn't want her daughter to be with Beck and planned to sever her thoughts. However, at the moment she struck, the gem from Beck's mother flashed a red light, frightening the White Queen into dropping her sword. Then, she turned around and transformed into her original form. Afterward, Beck found his master, who told him that this was a witch stone, a treasure that once belonged to the Blood Queen. It could greatly enhance his magic power, but it was stolen by a witch later on. It seemed that Beck's mother was no ordinary person either. Upon learning about the witch stone, the Blood Queen told her niece that as long as she retrieved the witch stone, she would spare Beck's life. The girl was overjoyed and hurried to find Beck. However, what happened next was beyond their expectations.